The wind was rising again. Tom stood outside his small shelter, staring at the sky. Dark red clouds were moving fast across the horizon. A storm was coming, and not just any storm. This was the kind of sandstorm that could tear walls apart and bury a man alive. He had seen it before. Last year, it broke 2 mining stations like toys. Dune 12 was a hard planet. The surface was dry and full of fine sand that moved like waves. The heat during the day could melt plastic. At night, the cold could freeze metal. Still, Tom stayed. He worked for a mining company that needed people like him to keep the machines running. The pay was good, and he didn't mind being alone. He walked back into the shelter and grabbed his shovel. He needed to dig around the base of the shelter and make a low wall of packed sand. That would help keep the wind from hitting the door directly. He also had to check the air vents. Last storm, they filled with dust and blocked his oxygen for hours. Tom stepped outside again and started digging. The sand was dry and light. It moved easily under his shovel. He worked in silence, stopping only to drink water. After an hour, he had built up a good ridge around the front of the shelter. He moved to the left side and began again. Suddenly, the shovel struck something hard. It didn't feel like rock. The sound was different. Metal, maybe? He cleared more sand away with his hands. A smooth, silver shape began to show. It was round and long like a pod. He cleared more. Then, his heart stopped. Inside the pod was a body. He froze for a moment. The body was small, maybe 5 feet tall. The skin was pale blue. The face looked like a girl's, but not human. Her eyes were closed. Her hair was long and silver. She wore a thin suit made of something smooth and soft. He could see no wounds, but her body was cold. Very cold. Tom looked around. No signs of tracks, no crash, no footprints. She had been buried here for a long time, maybe weeks. Why was she here? Who was she? He had a choice. Leave her there and seal the shelter, or take her inside. If the storm got worse, the wind might uncover her. If someone was searching, they might find her. But if she was alive, even a little, he couldn't just leave her. He lifted her carefully. Her body was light, almost weightless. He carried her inside and laid her on a sleeping mat. Then he turned up the heat in the room. He placed a thermal blanket over her and added a heat pack near her chest. She didn't move. Tom checked her pulse. Weak, but there. Her breathing was slow and shallow. She was alive. He sat beside her, unsure what to do next. He wasn't a doctor. He only had basic first aid tools. He checked the shelter's signal to see if there were any alerts. Nothing yet. The storm would hit in 4 hours. The girl's eyes suddenly opened. Tom jumped back. Her eyes were large and bright, glowing faintly in the warm light. She stared at him, breathing fast. She tried to sit up but fell back. Her voice was soft but sharp. Fool. Now they'll find me. Tom blinked. He didn't understand. Who will find you? She turned her head slowly, looking around the room. She saw the heating unit, the power lights, the food pack on the table. Her eyes stopped on him again. You woke me. You disturbed the sand. They will scan. They will come. Tom walked closer, keeping his voice calm. You were buried. I found you by accident. I'm not your enemy. The girl closed her eyes for a moment. Too late now. Tom sat down on the floor beside her. My name is Tom. I work here alone. I don't know who you are or why you were under the sand. But the storm is coming. It's too dangerous to leave you out there. She opened her eyes again. Name is Nira. Nira, Tom repeated. Are you hurt? She touched her side gently. No, just weak. I used energy to sleep and hide. Cold slows down searchers, hides my trail. You broke the sand shield. Tom frowned. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Nira looked at the ceiling. They use machines, Drones. They scan heat and movement. You must turn off signal. Shut power. No light. Tom stood up and moved to the control panel. He turned off the beacon, then the outside lights, then the backup antenna. The shelter went quiet. "What now?" he asked. Nira looked tired again. "We wait." Tom brought her water. She sipped slowly. Her hands shook, but her color was returning. Outside, the wind picked up. Dust began hitting the shelter walls. The storm had arrived. Inside, a human and an alien sat in silence, both knowing that something bigger was coming. The storm outside grew stronger. Wind howled like a wild beast, shaking the metal walls of the shelter. Sand hit the windows, making sharp sounds like claws on glass. Inside, the power lights were off. The heater was low. The shelter felt cold and quiet. Tom sat near the girl, Nira, who lay on the sleeping mat with her eyes open. She had not spoken again since her first warning. Her body was weak, but her eyes were sharp. She watched everything. Tom held a warm cup of water and handed it to her. She took it slowly and sipped. Her fingers were still shaking. Tom finally asked, "Are you hiding from soldiers?" Nira didn't answer right away. She stared at the floor, thinking. Then she nodded once. "They are not soldiers like yours," she said. "They are seekers. They follow orders. They do not feel. They do not stop." Tom frowned. "Why are they after you?" Nira looked up at him. "Because I left. Because I said no." Tom didn't understand. "No to what?" "To becoming a tool, a thing. My kind are born with a gift, energy inside our bodies. The leaders of my world use it for power. They take it. They call it service. I refused. I ran." Tom listened quietly. Her voice was calm, but he could feel the pain in her words. "They called me a traitor. They sent seekers. I fled across 3 moons. I hid inside a trade ship. I came to this world. I used the sand to hide my energy." Tom asked, "Were you the only one who ran?" Nira shook her head. "Others tried. Most were caught. Some gave up. Few survived." Tom felt a deep respect for her. She had suffered, escaped, and still kept going. He asked, "How long were you under the sand?" 10 days, she said. "Maybe more. I was asleep. My heart slowed, my body froze. I used a life capsule." Tom nodded. He had heard of those. Small pods used by aliens to survive deep space or harsh planets. He was surprised it worked on Dune 12. Most tech failed here because of the strong heat and magnetic storms. "You were lucky," Tom said. Nira looked at him. "You were the one who found me. That is not luck. That is danger." Tom stood up and checked the control screen. Everything was off. No signal. No light. The scanner showed heavy winds outside. The sandstorm would last for hours. He turned to Nira. "We are safe for now. You should rest." Nira shook her head. "They might be near. If they sensed the heat." "They will come when the wind stops," Tom asked. "What do they look like?" Nira closed her eyes. "Metal bodies, no face, long arms. They speak without words. You will hear them inside your head." Tom didn't like the sound of that. He picked up a power tool from the corner. It was used for cutting rock, but he had modified it with a stronger core. It could fire a short energy. Blast. Not made for fighting, but better than nothing. "If they come," he said, "we fight." Nira looked at the tool. "You will not win, but maybe we can run." Tom gave a small smile. "I don't like running." She stared at him for a moment. Then, for the first time, she gave a short smile too. "You are strange," she said. "Most humans I met only care about trade, credits, or weapons. You helped me." Tom sat back, down. "Maybe I'm just tired of being alone." Silence fell again. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, they waited. Hours passed. Nira slept for a while. Tom didn't. He sat and watched the door. He kept his hand on the power tool. Every sound outside made him sit up straight. At last, the storm began to weaken. The wind dropped. The sand hit softer. The scanner showed the sky clearing. Nira opened her eyes. "They will come soon," she whispered. Tom moved to the roof hatch and used a small hand scope to look outside. The sand was smooth again. No tracks, no ships. But in the distance, he saw something. A dark spot in the sky. It moved slowly, floating just above the dunes. A drone. He dropped down and shut the hatch. "They're here," he said. Nira sat up. "The drone will scan the shelter. If it finds my heat, it will send a signal. Then the ship will land." Tom's mind worked fast. "Is there any way to stop the drone?" Nira reached into her suit and pulled out a small round object. It looked like a stone, but it gave off a soft pulse. "This will block signals for 2 minutes," she said. "If you get close, place it under the drone. It will fall." Tom took it. "Can I reach it on foot?" Nira nodded. "Yes, but be fast." Tom grabbed his desert cloak and covered his face. He opened the back hatch and stepped into the sand. The wind was low, but the air was thick. He ran low, using rocks and dunes to stay hidden. The drone moved slowly, scanning the ground with a red light. Tom waited until it turned. Then he ran. His boots kicked up sand, but he stayed quiet. He got close, almost 10 feet away. The drone turned again. Tom threw the stone. It landed under the drone and flashed once. The drone shook, made a clicking sound, then dropped to the sand. Tom rushed forward, grabbed the drone, and buried it under sand. He ran back to the shelter and closed the hatch behind him. Nira was waiting. She looked at him with surprise. "You made it!" Tom was breathing hard. "Not bad for a human, right?" She gave a small nod. "For now, they won't find us," she said. Tom leaned back and smiled. "But this is only the beginning." The shelter was quiet again. Tom sat on the floor near the heater, his hands still shaking from the run. His clothes were covered in sand. His face was red from heat. But he was safe, and so was the girl he had rescued. She sat across from him, now her back against the wall, knees pulled up. Her eyes followed his every move, like she was still unsure whether to trust him or not. Her silver hair had fallen over her shoulders, and her skin looked a little warmer than before. "You never told me your full name," Tom said. She looked down at her hands. "Just Nira. That is what I call myself now." Tom nodded. "It's a nice name?" Nira did not smile, but her eyes softened. "My real name is longer. Hard to say in your language." "I'll stick with Nira then," Tom replied. She studied him for a moment. "You are not like the others." "What others?" "The humans I saw in spaceports. They lie. They take. They talk too loud. You are quiet." Tom gave a small shrug. "I came here to get away from people. Maybe I stayed quiet too long." They sat in silence for a while. The shelter was small but strong. Tom had built most of it himself. It had one room for sleeping, another for storage, and a corner with tools and supplies. A small power core kept everything running. Outside was nothing but sand for miles. "You said they use your kind for energy," Tom said after a while. "What does that mean?" Nira looked at the wall. "We are born with a light inside. A force. They call it life spark. In my world, the rulers take it from us. They use machines to pull it out. It powers their ships, their weapons, their cities." Tom frowned. "That sounds like slavery." Nira nodded. "Yes, but they say it is honor. They tell us it is our duty." "And you said no." "I said no. I escaped. They sent the Seekers after me. Once they find me, they will not ask questions. They will not listen. Tom stood and walked to the control panel. Everything was still shut down. No lights, no signals. He checked the outside scanner. It showed clear skies now. The storm had passed. But the air felt tense. "They will come again," Neera said behind him. "I know," Tom turned to her. "I have an old mining transport under the sand. It doesn't work well, but maybe I can fix it. We could use it to move." Neera looked unsure. "Where would we go?" "There's an old cave system 2 hours from here," Tom said. "Too rocky for drones, too deep for scanners. We could hide there." Neera stood slowly, still weak but stronger than before. "You would leave your home." "For me?" Tom gave a short laugh. "This isn't a home. It's a box full of wires and sand. You need help. That's reason enough." She looked at him for a long time. "You are strange, Tom. People say that. They got to work." Tom dug out the buried transport at the back of the shelter. It was a flat machine with a small cockpit and storage space. The sand had gotten into every part of it. The engine was full of dust. The front screen was cracked. He handed Neera a cloth and showed her how to clean the wires. She worked quickly, her hands fast and careful. He was surprised at how skilled she was. "You've done this before?" he asked. She nodded. "We build things on my world. My family made small flyers before the war." Tom checked the battery. It was dead. He went to the storage room and brought out an old power core. It was not strong, but it might be enough for a short trip. "Help me lift this," he said. Together they pushed the core into place. Sparks flew for a moment. Then the machine came to life with a soft hum. The screen blinked. "It works," Tom said. Neera smiled a little. As they loaded supplies into the transport, Neera found a small photo stuck to the side of the wall. It showed Tom with a woman and a child. She picked it up. "Your family?" Tom paused. "Not anymore. My wife passed away 5 years ago. My son, he left Earth, joined the space fleet. We don't talk much." Neera placed the photo down carefully. "I am sorry." Tom didn't reply. He just kept working. By sunset, the transport was ready. They packed food, water, tools, and a scanner. Tom checked the outside again. The sky was clear, but he had a strange feeling. The air was too quiet. "Time to move," he said. They stepped outside. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the dunes. Neera wrapped her cloak tight around her. Tom checked the scanner one last time. Then he froze. A red light blinked at the edge of the screen. "What is it?" Neera asked. "Something's moving. Fast. Low to the ground." Neera grabbed his arm. "It's them." Tom didn't wait. He helped her climb into the transport. He jumped in after her, slammed the door, and hit the start button. The engine roared. Sand flew as the wheels spun. The machine rose slightly off the ground and shot forward. Behind them, a shape rose from the sand. Tall, thin, metal arms, no face. It pointed one long finger at the sky. A light shot upward. Tom didn't look back. He drove fast, weaving between dunes, heading toward the rocky hills in the distance. Neera held on tight, eyes wide. "We have to reach the cave before the signal brings the ship," she said. Tom nodded. "Hold on. We're not stopping." Oh, the last light of the sun faded behind them. They vanished into the desert. The transport moved fast over the sand. Tom kept his hands tight on the controls. The engine was loud and the old machine shook with every bump, but it was still holding together. Behind them, the sun had disappeared. The sky turned dark, and stars began to shine over the desert. Neera sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the scanner screen. Her face was tense. She said nothing, but her fingers kept tapping the side of the dashboard. Tom looked at her. "We're almost near the rocks." "Just a little more." Nira pointed to the screen. There, behind us. 2 signals. Moving closer. Tom didn't turn. He pressed the speed bar harder. The engine growled, and the transport picked up speed. The rocky canyon ahead was not far now. Tom had been there once before when he was mapping the desert. The path was narrow, full of sharp turns, but it had deep walls that could block scanners. It was the best place to hide. As they reached the first stone edge, the sand changed under the wheels. It became harder. The sound of the engine echoed between the rocks. Tom slowed down and turned sharply into a narrow passage. The scanner blinked again. They are following, Nira said, and fast. Tom stopped the transport behind a tall rock wall. He turned off the engine and all lights. The machine went. Quiet. They waited. Only the sound of the wind passed through the stones. Tom looked at Nira. We need to do more than hide. We need to stop them from tracking us. Nira pulled a small device from her belt. It looked like a stone, round and smooth, with lines glowing faintly on the surface. This is a blocker, she said. It stops trackers and scanners, but only for 1 minute. Tom took it and looked around. We can use it as a trap. If we place it near the canyon entrance, maybe we can shut down their signal before they find us. Nira nodded. But someone must place it close to them. Very close. Tom looked at her. I'll do it. She shook her head. It is dangerous. I know. But you're still weak. And I'm faster on foot. You said 1 minute. That's enough time. He grabbed his light and the blocker, then stepped out of the transport. The wind was cooler now. He moved between the rocks, staying low. His boots made soft steps on the stone ground. He climbed a low ridge and looked down toward the open sand. There, in the distance, were 2 shapes. Tall, thin, moving without sound. The Seekers. They walked like shadows, their arms long and sharp. Red lights blinked from their heads. One of them stopped and raised a hand. A small drone flew from its back and hovered above the canyon. Tom took a deep breath. He moved down the rocks and found a spot close to the entrance. He placed the blocker behind a sharp rock and pressed the side. The lights on the stone blinked. Once, the device was active. The drone flew overhead, then stopped. Its light blinked. The Seekers paused. Their lights turned blue for a second. Tom ran back, fast and silent. He reached the transport and jumped inside. Now, we have 1 minute. Let's go. Nira restarted the engine. The transport moved deep into the canyon. They passed through narrow paths and high walls. The signal behind them faded. After 2 minutes, the blocker shut down. Tom looked at the scanner. Their signal is gone. They can't see us now. Nira nodded. But only for a short time. Once they reboot, they will start searching again. We'll go deeper, Tom said. There's a cave ahead. It has strong walls. They won't find it easy. They reached the cave after 15 more minutes. The entrance was low and hidden behind a thick stone curve. Tom got out and checked the area. No movement. No heat signs. They moved inside and parked the transport in the shadow. Tom turned on a soft light. The cave was dry and cool. The floor was flat. The walls were covered in old markings from miners who had worked here long ago. Nira touched the wall. This place is strong. It will hold. Tom pulled out supplies and placed them in a corner. Water, food, tools. He set up a small heater and laid 2 blankets on the ground. Nira sat down slowly. Her legs were still tired and her face looked pale again. Tom gave her a water bottle. Drink. You need rest. She sipped the water and looked at him. You didn't have to do this. You could have left me back at the shelter. Tom sat across from her. I don't leave people behind. She tilted her head. Why? You don't even know me. Tom looked into the heater light. I lost people before. My wife, my team. I couldn't save them. If I had done more, maybe things would be different. I don't want to make the same mistake again." Nira was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You are not like the others. You care." Tom gave a small smile. "Maybe that's why I ended up on a desert planet." They both sat quietly, listening to the wind outside. The cave was peaceful, but danger still waited beyond the rocks. After some time, Nira stood and walked to the mouth of the cave. She looked at the stars. "I was born on a world with 3 suns," she said. "Always bright, never dark. This world is different, cold, lonely, but now it feels safe." Tom stood beside her. "It won't be safe for long. They'll come again." She nodded. "Yes, but now I'm not alone." He looked at her. "We'll fight. Together." The wind outside blew softer now, but the silence carried a warning. They had won time, but not freedom, not yet. Morning light reached the cave slowly. Tom opened his eyes and sat up. The heater was still running. A soft glow filled the cave. He looked over at Nira. She was already awake, sitting near the entrance, her eyes watching the sky. She looked calm, but Tom could see worry on her face. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "A little," she said, "but my mind did not rest." Tom stood and stretched. He picked up a water bottle and took a drink. "Anything out there?" "Nothing yet," she said. "But they will come. The blocker only gave us a short delay." Tom walked to the scanner. The screen showed a clear sky, but one small signal blinked in the far corner. "There's a ship in orbit," he said. Nira nodded. "They are searching from above. They send drones down. The seekers on the ground send signals up. Together, they scan wide areas fast." Tom sat down beside her. "How do we stop that ship from tracking us?" Nira looked at him. "There is only one way. Destroy the signal link. The main link is on the seeker ship." Tom raised his eyebrows. "So we need to reach the ship?" She nodded. "Yes, and place this inside." She opened her hand and showed a small glowing device. It looked like a tiny cube. Light moved along its sides. "What is it?" Tom asked. "A blocker core, stronger than the last one. It can break their signal for good, but it only works if placed close to the ship's brain." Tom stared at the cube. "And how do we reach it?" Nira looked outside. "They will come soon. When they land, the ship will stay near. We must get close while they focus on the ground." Tom thought for a moment. "That's risky." "Yes," Nira said, "but it's our only chance." He stood and grabbed his tool bag. Inside were wires, power cells, and parts from broken machines. He began building something. Nira watched as his hands moved fast. "What are you making?" she asked. "A trap," Tom said. "If we can distract them, we can split their focus. One of us goes to the ship, the other leads them away." Nira stepped closer. "I will go to the ship. I know their design. I can find the brain fast." Tom looked up. "You're still not fully strong." Nira touched his shoulder. "You saved me. Let me do this." Tom didn't argue. He gave her a small transmitter. "Stay in touch. When I make the move, go." Hours passed. They waited in silence. Every sound outside made Tom check the scanner. The ship signal moved closer, then stopped. "They're above us," Tom said. Nira closed her eyes. "They are preparing to land." Soon, a loud hum filled the air. Dust fell from the cave roof. The scanner blinked red. "They're here," Tom said. He turned off the heater and lights. They moved to the back of the cave, staying low. The hum grew louder, then stopped. Silence. Then, soft metal steps echoed from the canyon entrance. Tom peeked through a crack in the rocks. He saw them, 3 seekers, tall, thin, moving in a line. One held a scanner, another had a glowing spear. Behind them, the ship hovered just above the ground. It was round, with blue lights under it. The surface was smooth, silver, and cold. Tom whispered, "Time to move." He handed Nira the blocker core. She nodded and slipped out through a side path behind the cave. She moved like a shadow, quiet and fast. Tom waited until she was out of sight. Then he placed his trap at the cave entrance. It was made from an old power core and 3 charge wires. If a seeker stepped on it, it would release a strong flash and sound burst. He waited behind a rock. The first seeker reached the trap. It stepped forward. The ground lit up with a white flash. A loud sound filled the air. The seeker fell back. The others raised their arms and moved toward the noise. Tom ran from the other side and threw a metal can toward the canyon wall. It exploded with a loud crack. Dust filled the air. The seekers turned and chased the sound. Tom ran through the rocks, leading them away. Behind him, Nira reached the ship. She moved under it and climbed a short ladder. A side door opened when she touched a panel. Inside, the air was cold. Blue light glowed from the walls. She moved fast, her feet silent. She passed long tubes and wires. A soft sound came from the walls, like the ship was breathing. She reached the brain room. In the center was a glass core, pulsing, with light. Around it were screens showing maps and signals. Nira pulled the blocker core from her belt and placed it near the brain. The light inside the ship changed. Blue turned to red. Sirens rang. Nira ran. Outside, Tom was still moving between rocks. The seekers chased him, shooting small bursts of light. One blast hit a stone near his leg. He fell but rolled behind cover. Then the sky lit up red. The ship made a loud sound and began to shake. Its lights flickered. Tom saw Nira jump down from the ship's side. "Run!" she shouted. They both ran back toward the cave. The ship shook more. Its engines failed. Smoke rose from the sides. The seekers stopped moving. One of them turned back toward the ship. The signal had been cut. Tom and Nira reached the cave and fell to the ground, breathing hard. Tom looked at her. "You did it," Nira smiled. "We did it." Outside, the seeker ship was falling. Its lights turned off. The drones dropped from the sky. The red eye of the lead seeker blinked once, then went dark. They were blind now. No signal, no command, just silence. Smoke rose into the sky. The seeker ship lay broken across the sand, half buried near the canyon wall. Its lights were gone. No sounds came from it now. The desert was quiet again. Tom stood beside Nira at the cave entrance. His arms were covered in dust, and a small cut ran across his forehead. But he was still standing. Nira leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. Her face was tired, but her eyes were bright. She held the empty blocker core in her hand. Its lights were dead now. "You really did it," Tom said. "You shut them down." Nira looked at the fallen ship. "It worked. The signal is broken. No more drones, no more seekers, at least for now." Tom picked up a tool bag and walked toward the broken ship. "We need to check what's left inside. If they stored data, others might come." Nira followed him slowly. The ground was hot from the sun, but the air was calm. No wind, no danger in sight. The ship had a deep crack across the side. Tom climbed through the broken wall and entered the ship again. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Wires hung loose. The inside was still and dark. He stepped over a fallen panel and reached the brain room. The main core was black now. The screens were cracked, but something blinked near the floor, a small storage chip. He picked it up. Nira entered behind him. She looked at the chip. "That holds their last orders. If the Empire still watches, they will trace it." Tom placed the chip in a metal box and shut it tight. "Then we need to keep it hidden." They left the ship and returned to the cave. Tom placed the box deep under a rock shelf and covered it with sand. Nira sat down beside the heater. Her hands shook slightly. Her skin looked pale again. You need rest, Tom said. She nodded. Using the core took a lot of my energy. I'll recover, but not fast. Tom sat near her. He reached into his bag and pulled out a food bar. He broke it in half and gave one piece to her. They ate in silence. After some time, Nira asked, "Do you think they will come again?" Tom looked at the cave wall. They might, maybe not soon, maybe later. But now we know how to fight them. She leaned back. I wish I could go home, but home is gone. Tom looked at her. What about other planets? Nira shook her head. I don't belong anywhere now. Tom stood and walked to the scanner. The screen was blank. No signals, no ships, no drones. He felt a strange mix of peace and worry. He turned back to her. Then stay here. I have space, and you're not alone anymore. Nira gave a small smile. You are strange, Tom, but kind. They spent the next 2 days repairing the transport. Nira's energy returned slowly. She helped fix the engine and clean the wires. Tom taught her how to use the mining tools. She was a fast learner. One evening, while checking the sky, Nira saw a new light in orbit. She called Tom over. Look, that's not a star. Tom used his scope. The light was moving too smoothly. It had the shape of a ship, but far away. A scout ship, Nira said. From the Empire. They're looking again. Tom lowered the scope. We need to leave this place. Nira looked worried. But where? Tom opened a drawer in the transport and pulled out a map. There's an old human outpost in the south. It was closed years ago, but the caves go deep. We can make a base there, build stronger walls, block all signals. Nira studied the map. It's far. Tom nodded. 3 days across the desert, but we have fuel now, and I made repairs to the shield panel. The transport can take it. They packed quickly. Water, food, tools, the data chip. Tom helped Nira into the seat. She was stronger now, but still recovering. The transport started with a low hum. The wheels turned. The sun was just rising as they drove out of the canyon. The desert opened before them. Sand stretched for miles. Rocks stood, like giants on the horizon. On the second day, a storm began in the north. Dark clouds rolled in fast. The wind picked up. Sand filled the air. Tom slowed the transport. He checked the map. We need shelter. Nira pointed to a nearby ridge. There, I see a shadow, maybe a cave. They drove toward it. The cave was small, but enough to hide the transport. They parked inside and waited. The storm hit hard. Wind roared outside. Sand flew like knives across the rock walls. The transport shook, but stayed in place. Inside, Tom and Nira sat close to the heater. The storm reminded them of the first night they met. You saved me from the sand, Nira said softly. You saved me from the silence, Tom replied. She looked at him. Do you ever miss Earth? Tom nodded. Sometimes. But it's not home anymore. I stayed too long in space. The stars feel closer than the ground. Nira closed her eyes. Maybe we are the same, both without a place. Both running. Tom smiled. Maybe. But we're not running now. We're building. When the storm ended, they left the cave and continued the journey. On the third day, they saw it. The old outpost, half buried in sand. Broken towers. Rusted walls. But under it were the caves, Tom remembered. They stopped at the edge and stepped out. This is it, Tom said. A new place. No signals, no lights, just stone and silence. Nira looked around. We can build here, hide here, grow strong. Tom nodded. Together. They entered the cave system. The air was cool and still. Water dripped from the ceiling. The walls were thick, safe. Far above them, the Empire's scout ship kept searching. But it would not find them here, not yet. Deep underground, the cave was quiet. Tom walked through the tunnel with a tool in one hand and a light in the other. Dust covered his boots. Behind him, Nira followed, holding a scanner that showed the layout of the cave system. "It's bigger than I thought," Tom said. Nira nodded. "These caves were made long ago, maybe hundreds of years, perfect for hiding." They had been living in the old outpost for 2 weeks. The days passed slowly. Every morning they worked on turning the cave into a real shelter. Solar panels were placed near the surface. A water tank was fixed. Tom used old wires to connect. Lights inside. Nira repaired the signal blocker using parts from the broken seeker ship. At night, they sat near a small heater and talked. Sometimes about the past. Sometimes about dreams. Sometimes they just sat in silence and listened to the wind above. One morning, Nira woke up early. She checked the scanner. No signals. No movement. Safe. She walked outside the cave and looked. Up. The sky was wide and bright. Clouds moved slowly. A strange peace filled her heart. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. Tom joined her with a drink in his hand. "Looks like a good day." Nira smiled. "Yes, it feels different." They sat on a flat rock and watched the desert together. Suddenly, the scanner, in Nira's hand, beeped. A small dot blinked on the screen. "Something's moving," she said. Tom stood up fast. "How far?" "Maybe 20 kilometers. Small. Fast. Could be a drone." They rushed back inside and locked the entrance. Tom checked the shield panel. It's still working. But if the drone gets too close, it might see the heat signals. Nira opened the metal box and pulled out the old storage chip from the seeker ship. "They may still be tracking this. We need to move it." Tom looked at her. "We can't just throw it away. It's the only proof of what they've done." "I know," Nira said, "but we must lead them away." They both stared at the map on the wall. A plan formed. That night, Tom placed the chip in a fake bag and loaded it into a small desert drone. He programmed the drone to travel north, away from the cave. The next morning, the drone left quietly, moving across the sand like a bug. Tom and Nira waited. Hours passed. Then the scanner beeped again. The unknown dot changed direction and followed the drone. Tom sighed. It worked. For now. But they both knew something else. The Empire would not stop. Even if this drone failed, others would come. "They can't find this place," Tom said. "If they do, we may not be able to escape again." Nira looked around. "Then we make this more than a hiding spot. We turn it into a base." From that day, they worked harder. Tom found an old mining tunnel and cleared it. It led to a deeper chamber, wide enough for living, storage, and equipment. Nira installed new heat blockers and made a second exit in case they ever had to run again. They built beds, shelves, and even a small indoor garden using grow lights and soil packs. Nira brought strange seeds from her old ship. Soon, green sprouts grew from the dirt. The cave no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a home. One evening, while checking the signals again, Nira found something strange. A voice, broken, weak, but real. She called Tom. He listened. The message was old, repeating every few seconds. "Help me, trapped. Outpost 9. Water low, please." Tom stared at the signal. "That's not from the Empire." "No," Nira said. "It's a human voice." They studied the map again. Outpost 9 was over 200 kilometers away, long abandoned. But now someone was there. Tom looked at her. "We can't ignore this," Nira agreed. "We were saved once. Now it's our turn." They packed supplies and left the next morning in the transport. The journey was long and hard. Sandstorms hit on the second day. The signal grew weaker, but they kept going. On the fourth day, they reached Outpost 9. It was broken, buried halfway in sand, but one tower still stood. Inside, they found a young human man, thin and weak, holding a dead radio. His name was Darren. He had crashed weeks ago during a supply mission. No one came for him. His crew had left, thinking he was dead. Tom and Nira gave him food and water. He cried when he saw the fresh green plant in Nira's hand. "You're not from Earth," Darren said, staring at Nira. "She's better than anyone I ever knew," Tom said. They brought Darren back to their cave. He was the first human Nira had spoken to besides Tom. At first he was quiet, but slowly he saw who she really was. Not a threat, not a danger, just someone who had lost her home and found a new one. Weeks passed, then months. More signals were found. More lost people, some humans, some alien refugees. Each time, Tom and Nira helped them. The cave grew bigger, the garden wider, the lights brighter. One day, a new message came. This time, not a cry for help, a warning. The Empire was coming, in full force. But Tom and Nira were ready. They had friends now, fighters, builders, survivors. They stood on the cliff outside their base. The sun was rising. "They can't run forever," Nira said. Tom looked at the sky. "Then we stop running. We fight." She took his hand. And together, with others by their side, they prepared for the next battle. Not to hide, but to protect what they had built.